Hello everyone, welcome to Crotoflick. My name is Chad Bradle and today I'm going to show you how to build the Crotocam, essentially a DIY Steadicam. And this would be it. It'll probably cost around $30 to $40. The price is really going to fluctuate depending on if you already have some of the parts. But it's extremely easy to build, and if you have already built a Steadicam of your own, you pretty much can reuse your gimbal most likely. But I'll list the parts down in the description below. And let's get started building this, shall we? Grab your first set of dual flash brackets, and for your first one, the one with the two slits down it, arrange your knobs so they're in the appropriate position as you see here. And take your second bracket and arrange them so they're as you see, just like this. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take your dual threaded or your dual slotted part here and put it just up to where this thread with the rubber here threads into the other threaded spot on this side. And what we're going to do is we're going to move it just as you see here where our current knob is threading into this hole, but we're going to be just above that. So now you look like that. Alright, so now grab your second set of dual flash brackets and take your first one with the slotted grooves on both sides of it and arrange it like so with the knobs. And then take your other one with your threads as you see right here and simply match the screws up to the threads on the farthest ends like so, and then you have your bottom one on the other slot here that can move up and down, and we'll have our weights attached here. Now grab your two pieces that you just put together and take your top nut here and thread it in to the bottom hole like you see here. Tighten it down good, and then straighten it out if you want to right now, and then tighten this other nut right up against it. And now you have pretty much the whole thing. And now what's just left is putting the weights on the gimbal. Alright, so now we're going to take the little T-nut that we have. Kind of looks like this, if you haven't seen them before. It's got 1/4 20 threads on the inside. Take this T-nut, and then on this bottom screw here, thread the T-nut with the flat surface up, tighten this right down, and you got a little knobber right there. Alright, so now for the gimbal design, which is essentially based on the W.S. Claytor idea for using Traxxas, U-joints, and ball bearings, skate bearings. But essentially what you'll be doing is taking one of these U-joints that looks like this and has the grooves on the side. This is from this, and it's typically about yay long, but you're gonna cut it so it's just long enough to push out the end of the bearing, and you're gonna squeeze it inside of the bearing, and like so. I used a pair of needle nose pliers, and the best way to do this is to either sand around the edge, maybe take a utility knife and cut little angles on the tip so you can push it in. And something that I also found that helped was found a small drill bit that was actually slightly bigger than the hole that currently exists in this, and drilling straight down into it, and it actually made the whole thing a little more squeezable, you could say, and I was able to squeeze it in there easy. But when you go to squeeze it in, you want the U-joint to butt up to the metal here on the opposite side, so you want it nice and flat. Now you're going to get your masking tape and a pair of scissors, and you're going to cut little slits like so. And you're going to take these and you're going to start wrapping it around the bearing. See, mine doesn't actually reach, but you're going to keep layering it all the way around. So you can take your Dollar Tree flashlight like you see here, take off the end cap, the inside, get rid of those, And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the tape, keep laying it around so that it gets so tight it just squishes down inside of this threaded portion of the flashlight. All right, so once you think you have enough layers, like you see here, go ahead and take it and see how well it squeezes in there, and it should be really hard to push down. I mean, it should literally almost flex out the metal. Maybe a little harder than this, but just so you see, make sure it squeezes down there. Don't push it in all the way, because what we're going to do is we're going to trim off the excess. All right, so now once you got that all nice and trimmed, go ahead and carefully squeeze it back down inside there without trying to push up too much of the existing tape. What you're going to end up doing is, to make sure that your bearing is centered, go ahead and grab the end of the U-joint and spin the flashlight. And if it wobbles like that, it means you're off center. And because it's the weight, heavy weight is coming down at this point, that means this top portion has to push in farther. So you're going to have a little battle going back and forth, squeezing that in farther and farther. But just keep doing that until your flashlight spins perfectly straight, or at least the best you can to get it to spin perfectly straight. And that's pretty close. Probably needs to go down further, but you get the idea. But it shouldn't wobble when you're done. Alright, so you might not be able to get it perfect, but as long as you can get it pretty close, I'd say that's pretty close for me. But this is probably one of the most tedious parts of this whole thing, is just trying to get this perfectly straight within the flashlight. Now what you're going to do is you're going to grab your ice scraper you got at the Dollar Tree. Now if you can't get an ice scraper, essentially you're just looking to get some type of foam handle to slide over top of this flashlight. Came apart pretty easily, then just popped right off. And this is a foam handle. But this is not actually needed, but it's kind of like an extra. But I'd say might as well go for it if you can get one. But essentially, just take your handle and slide it over the outside of the flashlight. Alrighty, so after you get the padding on the flashlight, what you're going to do is you're going to get your other piece of your Traxxas U-joint, which is it's got the center hole in it. And you're going to shorten it up. This is typically longer, and you're going to cut it so that what it's going to end up doing, and I used a PVC pipe cutter to cut mine. Whatever you have laying around, one of these or saw, go ahead and use that to cut yours. Is cutting it to a length so that it will actually push over top of this T-nut, as you see like right here. But you don't want the T-nut to run into this on the inside, so leave it just slightly longer so that when you actually push this up in there, it won't run into it. And it's going to be really snug, so just so you know. Alright, so once you have that cut, you're going to take these two pieces, you're going to putting them together with the little metal balls that come supplied with them, and you're going to essentially take needle nose pliers and bend these backwards, and it's going to be really weird bending them over to fit onto one another with those metal balls and the lengths that stick out of them. Alright, so once you have your gimbal all ready to go, get everything balanced and what have you, go ahead and get the rest of your setup here with your T-nut facing down, and take your hole and essentially just pushing this up over the T-nut. And it may be really tight at first, the first time you go to do it. But once you have it on there, it should look like this. And try to push it up as far as you can up over the T-nut. If you can, push it right up to it, but it'll grip it really strong and it should hold it just fine. Alrighty, now I'm going to go ahead and add the weights. For mine, when it came to balancing, what I ended up doing is taking a few 1/4-inch washers or whatever washers you have, and taking the small 1/4 20 bolt that comes with your ground clamp, and using that to clamp on, or thread in just a few washers to the very bottom of this. You probably actually don't need this at all, but when it came to balancing, for some reason when I added this on, it helped. So go ahead and use a Phillips, tighten that up, and then you'll have like a little extra bottom weight. But most likely you don't even need this. It's just for some reason it worked for me. So keep that in mind. Now what you're going to do is you're going to get your ground clamp and you're going to take it apart. So you have just this back portion with the threads here. And like you see, using one of the bolts supplied, take your 1/4 inch fender washers and however many you think you need, slide them in the bolt, tighten it down so it looks just like this. I think I have about 16 here approximately, but I'm using a Canon T3i with a kit lens. So if you're using a lighter camera, you probably need less weight. You know, if you're using a heavier camera, you might need more. It just depends. Now going to add this to the bottom, what I ended up doing was taking a washer like this, or a 1/4 inch washer, and placing it right over that thread. And there's just a little bit of thread sticking up, but it should be just enough so that you can thread into the bottom of this and get a grip on it, and then make it really tight. And what that's going to help you do is that washer is going to help you pivot this entire weight over this without like tearing into the rubber. So you'll just use that to pivot nice and easy. If you find that maybe this is moving too much on you and you can't get this tight enough, you can take the washer out and just have it right against the rubber, but it might cause it, like you kind of see mine, to start pushing your rubber off the edge. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do there. And if you can't get ground clamps where you're at, really all you need is just a little piece of metal sticking out with some holes on the end, and maybe a wing nut here and here, just to give you something to pivot weight from. But ground clamp worked good for me. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about something that I have not seen a single DIY Steadicam build even acknowledge, which I find it completely incredible that no one's even brought this up. But when it came to balancing mine, I noticed that this U-joint had slack in it. Slack between the, you can see that, hopefully it's focused in, but I noticed that it had slack, and I believe that was caused by when I was putting this on, that when I had to flex it out, it wouldn't fully flex itself back in. This is actually a big problem, because this will actually cause your entire Steadicam, if it slides over just that little bit, it will actually cause it to tilt, either left or right, or forward or back. And it became very frustrating to me when I was trying to balance it, because I didn't know what was happening at first. Why my Steadicam, while I was walking it, would randomly just tilt and stay there until I discovered that problem. But everyone seems to use this for their Steadicams. So I guess at this point, all I can think is maybe if I heat up this plastic with a lighter, maybe I can kind of bend it back in and get it to take up less moving space. But until now, that's really all I can tell you. I don't really know of a better method other than these and what everyone else uses. But yeah, I thought that would be a word of caution to you guys. Depending on whatever Steadicam build you decide to go with, you are very likely to run into that problem. Now when you go to balance your Crotocam, there's a few different ways you can go about this. One, the way I did it was I mounted my camera all the way to the rear, and then what I do is, to get my forward and back lean, I would simply, while holding the handle, I would loosen the top nut, and then depending on which way it leaned, I would just take the entire thing and slide it a little ways forward, a little ways back, or a little ways forward, until it balances itself appropriately for that direction. Once I had that, I would then simply tighten it right up against the T-nut so it wouldn't move anywhere, and gripping on this rubber here. And then for my side to side, there's a couple ways you could actually go about this. One is just having your weights here, just pushing it down and then pushing it up. And obviously, depending on which side of your camera is biased for being heavier, then you just, want to go to the opposite side with your weights. And you can just kind of slowly push it out and it'll slowly tip your camera this way or that way. The other way of doing that exact same balancing is simply taking this nut right here and loosening it. And then what you can do is you can actually pivot the entire bottom. So you can get your side to side that way. And then once you have the way you want it, just tighten this nut right back up. So that's pretty much it for balancing. Now, with this particular design, if you plan on doing a lot of running with it, what you may have to do is thread a bolt and connect these two top pieces together and tighten them up. I noticed that while I was doing some test running, that I was getting a slight tiny jolt in my footage, and I think that's because this top plate here, this top bar, was slightly flexing. So I think if you squeezed them together with a bolt, either right up here where there's a thread, or just in the back and maybe drilled a couple holes and just squeezed them together, that way you are getting, you're just going to remove that. If you'd like to see how this functions for me, go ahead and click the short I created right to my side here. I call it Splintered Past. It's kind of a Splinter Cell inspired short or look. So yeah, go ahead, check it out. Let me know what you think. And if you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them below. Also, feel free to follow me on Facebook, Google+, or Twitter, and then that way you can stay up to date on the projects that I am working on in the background. Anywho, thanks for watching. My name's Chad Bradall. See you later.